Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. New year, new week, new me. I don't know about that. New TBR. Yes, it is time to set a new TBR for the first week of the first month of 2024. So, this week's TBR, which I'm going to start reading tonight because I might as well, is partly the books that I showed as my TBR for 2024. I made sure that at least one book from that stack is in this week's. I included a decent number of books that are carryovers from 2023 because I want to make a reasonable effort at finishing them in a reasonable time. But I also want to start fresh with some new books. So I also, after setting various aspects of my TBR based on things going on BookTube and things that I've committed to, I also walked through my areas where my books are and picked a couple extra books that I just kind of felt in the mood for. Because I think that is important to not just box yourself into what you're going to be reading. So here are the books I'm setting for this week's TBR for week 1 of 2024. First up, one from last year's TBRs, or this last year's. I am going to try and continue reading Mary Stewart. So, Thunder on the Right. This one is a borrowed book, but it's one that's been on my shelves for long enough that it would be nice to send it back. This is one that I pulled that I just thought looked really interesting. It's called Purge by Sophie Oksanen, and it is, I think, translated from Finnish, I believe. At least it's a winner of the Nordic Council Literature Prize and winner of the Finlandia Award. I'm guessing it was originally written in Finnish. I'll find out. It's one of those that doesn't have a lot of information on the back of the book. So grumble, grumble, grumble. But it looked really interesting. And I could have sworn that I've seen a booktuber that's talked about that book. Or maybe it was on Goodreads. Anyway, Operation Time Search by Andre Norton. Andre Norton is one that I've been working on reading for a couple years. In 2024, I would love to be able to check off all of the rest of Andre Norton's books. If I want to reread them after that, I can, but just to finally finish that project. This is a new to me author. I could have sworn I've read one of these. I don't know which one it would be, but Greg Bear. I think I read Greg Bear maybe in my first undergrad, so it's been decades. And I'm not sure this book was even out decades ago. Let's see when this book was published. Let's find out. It was published in 2002. So actually, when I last may have read a Greg Bear novel, no, this book had not come out yet. So, Vitals by Greg Bear. This one's one from my TBR, The Burning Room by Michael Connelly. It's a bit of murder mystery thriller, crime, somewhere in that range. It's a Harry Bosch novel, it says, so part of a series. I'm not reading the series in order. I own this book. If I like it, though, I might look up the rest of the series. And if I go that far, I will be looking for book 1 and trying to read them in order because it drives me nuts. But I can read one of them regardless of where it is in the series just to see if I like the writing at all. So this one's to find out if I like it. This is volume 1 of my 24 tomes and for 24 project for January. The traditions of Chinese, or sources of Chinese tradition rather. This 2-volume set was the numbered pick for this month, for January, from my 24 tomes in 24. I will be starting on volume 1 this week and hopefully finishing it by halfway through the month so that I can finish the other volume as well in January. Why do I have these books, you ask? Or maybe you don't ask, but I took several Chinese history classes in college. So I have quite a few books from that experience that I've just kept ever since. I think I might get more out of them now than I did back then, because the kind of reading you do in college is what you have to do to pass the class. This is decades later with a lot of experience, having read a lot of different things, having met quite a few people from China, from different contexts. So now going back to it, we'll see. It might actually be a lot more interesting than it was when it was an assigned reading for the class. And the class was actually just the later part of Chinese history that these books were for, so volume 1 was not required. It was one I found on a free shelf and happened to already have volume 2, which was required for that class. Next we have The Sayers Swindle by Victoria Abbott. This is a murder mystery. I've read several in the series. They are fun, and each one centers around a rare book that happens to be in, whatever the title suggests. This will be Dorothy Sayers. I've been listening to Dorothy Sayers audiobooks as bedtime stories for a while, off and on. So it's nice to read this one finally. I really like the audiobooks read by Ian Carmichael, who played Lord Peter Wimsey in the books by Sayers. So I will probably listen to more of those while I'm reading this one. Next up, okay, some of you may have heard of it before. I'm relatively new to BookTube and only gradually seeing all the things people are doing on BookTube and finding the things that I'm interested in trying out. The Adventure-thon that I've seen a few times pop through my feed. I finally watched the videos on that. That's actually looking kind of fun. So I'm going to try it. I didn't dive in for 2023, so I don't have a character constructed. So my character is pretty vague. And it's been so long since I did any sort of role-playing that side of it is going to be a learning experience, refreshing how to even do this anymore. But in the meantime, I can say that me being me, my character falls within the range of one of the characters that apparently is just, if you need one, here's the basic characters kind of thing. So I'm always either a magic user or a seer or a scholar. They don't have a scholar separate, so a mage would be the closest. But the first stop in this Adventure-thon for January is picking your table based on the vibes of the table. And table 4 is all the magic users, and that's the easy answer for where my little character would end up. But that's totally not me. I would wander over there after a while maybe, but I would be going to probably the table with all of the warriors with all of their pointy things. Not because I'm going to wield pointy things, but because that's just so much more interesting. So that's the table I'm going to. Okay, that's the logic anyway. That's the why I picked table 2. But why I picked table 2 also has something to do with the book that I chose for this first book, which is supposed to match the vibe of your table. I came across a whole bunch of books by John Norman in the Gore series. Yeah, they're fantasy, but they're, like, I think Conan the Barbarian subgenre of fantasy. Heavy on the fighting, lighter on the magic. And I haven't actually read one yet. They take up a lot of room on my shelf. And I don't have book one. So I need to read at least one and see if this is even going to be something that I want to read. And if it's something where I really have to read them in order. I doubt it, because it's the size of series that looks to me like something where they kind of hope that new readers will pick up whatever book has just come out. I'm hoping that's the way it is, because this is book 18. Book 18 in this series. So, yeah, we'll see how this goes. This will be my first book diving into the Adventure-a-thon. And I will put a link to that in the description in case you want to know what I'm trying my toes at, pointing my toes into, whatever. Yeah, so that should be fun. We'll see how it goes. Totally different from most readathon adventures that I take part in. And the books that are carryovers that I'm going to focus on this week. The Ira Affair, which has a bookmark just about halfway. That one might be done very quickly if I actually focus on it. All the Stories of Muriel Spark. Bookmark is again just about halfway, maybe not quite half. This one's turning out to be interesting. If you've read her novellas, they tend to be set more in England. But most of the stories so far in this collection are set in Africa. And I do remember vaguely that she lived there. I don't know for how long. I need to look up more about Muriel Spark now. But most of them are set in Africa. So that was an interesting detail that I did not expect. And they're very good. Yeah. Hopefully I will finish that soon. I will probably keep it, but I do like the idea of sending books on their way too. I'm going to focus on 20 Years of Growing this week. Its bookmark isn't quite as far along, maybe a third of the way, but if I actually focused on it for any amount of time, it would go pretty quickly. And then we have Billy the Kid. Let's see if I can get that where the glare doesn't completely mask what the book is. There we go, Billy the Kid. This one, the bookmark isn't too far along. Yeah, I finished a few chapters, but I could have focused a little bit more on it. This does have notes and references and stuff at the end, so it's not as many pages as it looks. So it's probably about a third of the way through the actual text. And last but not least for this week, we have Watchman by Ian Rankin. There's without the sticker hiding the title. This one is a crime thriller set during the Troubles in Ireland. So that's my week, hopefully, that will run from tonight through Sunday night, something like that. I had this idea last year that I kept going for a little while of trying to mark my week starting at a particular day of the week every week. That didn't last very long. I also tried just ending every week on a multiple of 7 day in that month. That got confusing because months and weeks don't start on the same day sometimes. But for the purpose of BookTube, I might go back to that. So post on the 7th, post on the 14th, the 21st, etc. Realistically, I'll post when I have enough to talk about, which may differ from one week to the next. There's also a few other reading events going on that I might like to participate in. The TBR-a-thon? That sounds right. That one, I think it's a TBR-a-thon. Oh my gosh. It has a prompt that is to read the oldest book on your TBR. And I had just been staring at one of my shelves and realized that I have a great book for that event. So I may have to participate in that just because I have that book. I'll show it to you now. This British history book, Britain Yesterday and Today, 1830 to the Present by Walter Arnstein. This book belonged to my mother. Probably she wants it back. I adopted it when I was a kid. It has been on my shelves or in my books since I was a kid. And I assumed, most of the time here, whenever I thought about it, which wasn't that often, that it was a book from when she went back to school when we were kids. But looking at it a little bit more closely, my mom's name is on the inside of it, but it's her maiden name. This is one of the books she had in college in the 70s before she got married. So, yeah, I think this is definitely the book that's going to be my oldest book in my TBR for that reading event. Because I haven't read it. I must have been about 8 when I kidnapped it or adopted it or absconded with it. And I'm definitely older than that now. It's been a couple decades. And it's been in my mom's collection since a couple years before I was born. So, yeah, I'm going to try and finish that in January. That should be fun. There were 2 books in this category. I gave the other one back to her after I read it again a while ago. I used them for references for a paper or a project. It was a project. It was a genealogy. I drew out the genealogy of the kings of England in 8th grade. So I actually used them then. And I read the other one in 8th grade. So eventually I looked at it again in college and gave it back to her. So I probably need to give this one back to my mother. Anyway, I will check in again soon with another video. This might be a 2 videos in one night sort of night because I need to do a end of the year wrap up, which should be very exciting. So join me in that video if you would like. Hopefully you are having a grand time ending off 2023. I was going to have whiskey and social things going on, but the whiskey we didn't actually make it out to get, and the social things, we had a stitching group earlier today, so I did have people over and we had snacks and worked on finishing projects, although most of us were starting new projects, not finishing ones we were supposed to be. And then the sibling that was going to come over later, it should have been here right around now, they got a new bed. They and their partner got a new bed, and it's very exciting. And they have relatively new cats, and they're just gonna enjoy the new bed with the new cats as their New Year's Eve festivities, which totally makes sense. Quiet is good. So I am closed up the house, and I've got a pile of catnip in a few choice places throughout the house for the cats. Last time I saw all of them, they were all coated in catnip, so they've been having fun. And we're just having a nice quiet night. I'm going to try and finish a few more books and probably go back to audio. I've been listening to Patricia Highsmith books as audiobooks, so I might start one of those. Not sure which one yet, so you'll find out if I do that. It'll be on my finished books on the 7th-ish. But yeah, so I might do that and try and get a little bit more of stitching done. Haven't decided yet. And I'll definitely have to make another video telling you guys how 2023 went and some of my favorite books from this year. So talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys.